good morning and welcome to my video all about how I am going about the editing of my novel. And this morning I have spent some time going through my previous draft, which is this here, and I've also been going through Act 1 of the outline that I did many weeks ago now, and have been trying to work out what else is needed in addition to the 25 chapters I've already got. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll remember this, which is my 25 chapters based on the key points of what I'd already written. But then when I went through that, I realised, just to recap a little bit, I realised that some of the characters and some of the key moments were being either brushed aside, or some of the characters didn't really appear in it very much at all. So I'm now going through it and trying to bring in these characters a lot more, and also try and, what's the word, weave the theme through a little bit more. I'm sure there is a better way of writing down what the theme is, but this is what I've got so far. A story of identity after the birth of a child. My character is no longer Eve Church but Mum. A feeling of not knowing who she is when she's in hospital, losing control of the situation, her family expecting her to behave in a certain way, and Eve not wanting to behave that way, and being a little bit scared by her reactions to her family and everything. And when she returns home from the hospital after having a baby, she feels this sense of loss, and she can't understand why she feels like she's in mourning when she's given birth to a baby. So that's all to do with identity, and that's something that I worked out, and I can't remember how many videos ago it was now. I think it was in the video where I return to my novel after having a significant break, which I will link below, and at the end of that video I'd worked out what the overall theme of the novel was, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was actually something else. So that's what I'm doing now. Based on that realization from my other video, I'm now threading that through. And these revision cards, I call them revision cards, you might call them something else. In my last video, I think in my last video, I wrote down all the different chapters. So I've got chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and so on. And what I'm doing now, I'm writing what happens in those chapters, but I've got a question here, I've got an insert here, another insert, and this is where I am bringing in the characters that I noticed on this grid that basically they hadn't appeared whatsoever and only appeared in kind of thoughts of my main character, so there's no action from them, if you like. So they're my little inserts, and then we go to chapter 4, chapter 5, is this in focus? Chapter 5 continued, chapter 6, and again this is a new thing. Well, not a new thing, it's in this draft here, and that's what I'm just going through now. I'm looking at how I approached it before and add it in. Now I know more about the ending of the novel and what the theme of the novel is. I can bring those elements into play when Eve communicates with the rest of her family and how she hides what she's going through. What I will say at this point in time is that I am at the moment feeling, I'm reading through this and I'm thinking, Helen, you're not a very good writer. So I just want you to know that, because it sounds like I know what I'm talking about when I'm writing these things, but I'm actually going through a kind of a crisis as well, a confidence crisis. So that's just so that you know where I am at the moment. I'm reading through this draft, and I know it's just a draft, and I was basically getting ideas down. But I'm thinking, oh my God, have I got it in me to make this better? And I know I do. I'm determined to do it. But yeah, this is where I'm just thinking, what a pile of tripe this book is. So that's where we are right now. Now, where's it gone? Right, we have my main character. She's at a kind of dinner party with her family, and then I go on to talking about breastfeeding, and it's a little tiny story. It fits in with the theme of identity, although I am not sure where it fits in terms of the timeline, or am I? Anyway, the point is, that is why I create these little insert cards. It's a little anecdote, I suppose. It's a little bit of the story that I don't want to lose from this draft. So I'm basically just putting an insert, and what I will do, I'll put it at the after chapter 6, because this is where I have put it in the original draft. But when it comes to actually sort of laying all these cards out, I can see a little bit more as to where it will appear in terms of the time scale. Once I've written all the chapters out, then I'm going to lay all these cards out on the floor, or put some blue tack on them and stick them on my wall, and then I'm going to divide it up into periods of time. So whether it's the birth, or 2 weeks after birth, 3 weeks after birth, 2 months after birth, that sort of thing. But for the moment, I need to not worry about time frame, and that will be the next layer. I keep finding extra levels to do. Anyway, so my insert, what was my insert? It was all about breastfeeding. So now this insert will go behind chapter 6, and I'll now get the next card from my pile, which is chapter 7. When I first started writing my novel, or this novel, many years ago, I bought a number of books all about postnatal depression and post-traumatic stress after the birth of a child, and I went through and read much of them. These were just a few of them that I bought. They were really helpful, but they were also a little bit overwhelming. However, now I have my theme, which is identity. I can re-look at all my research and just focus on the bits that relate to identity, and I think that's going to be a really useful thing to do. It's been a long time since I looked at these books, and it's also been a long time since I had my first child, which is what some of this is based upon, and he is now 16. So even though a lot of the feelings have stayed with me and have inspired me to write this, the novel has now taken on a life of its own, and as time has gone on, it's become less my story and more my main character's story. And I never really got that when people said that before, but as I'm going on and as I'm adding bits and not just wanting to tell my story in a kind of linear fashion, but I'm bringing in all these other bits. so that we can see more of the main character through the other characters around her. I hope I'm not talking a load of rubbish here, but for example, I want the life of her grandmother, her Nana, to reflect some of the feelings of loss and identity and a massive change in life. That's where I am right now. I feel, although I'm having all these doubts today, I also feel like I'm starting to get somewhere, and I've done all of this research that's over there. I've done all my outlining that's there with the blue washi tape. I've done all this act planning, and it's only now that I'm feeling that it's starting to come together, and that is something that both delights me but also scares me. It really scares me, because I'm starting to get excited about what this novel could be, and then I think, am I up to the task of writing it? This could be quite powerful. But then I read through this rough draft and I think, God, there's nothing powerful in there. It's just a load of rubbish. So that's where we are. There's a lot of conflicting emotions going on right now as I write this, or as I plan out these chapters. Oh, I've already highlighted bits in here. I think what I might have done in the past is highlighted bits of it that related to me, but as I say, it's now become Eve's story. It's not my story anymore. So these pink bits of highlighter might not apply to Eve. They might apply to me, but not to Eve. Oh, this is a note that I've written on kitchen towel. This must have been years ago. First chapter ends with Holly. Holly was the name of my character before she became Eve. First chapter ends with Holly looking at baby and wondering who the stranger was. As the doctor stitched me back together, my mind went over and over, on reflection, the worst time of her life. That's quite sad, isn't it? So yes, there's lots of food for thought in here. This is a book on lots of women who've struggled with postnatal depression, and I'm going to let it help me with some of the feelings that over time I've forgotten about, or they've been buried, and it's going to be interesting to see what applies to Eve. I have just got to the first doorway of no return, which is in my little book. The first doorway of no return, it is the end of Act 1, and this is when my main character decides not to go back to work. So I just need to fill in this card, and then I have, where have they gone? So many pieces of paper. I have there the first act. So I'll just get this card done, and then that's it. The first act is done. Okay, so I thought it might be interesting to show you how 8 chapters have become 16 cards. That's not to say that they're going to become 16 chapters, but it means that all the gaps that or a lot of the gaps that I identified through those grids are now being dealt with. So here I have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Then I've got a question there that I still don't know the answers to. I've got an insert, 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 insert. Chapter 4 here, chapter 5, 5 again, chapter 6, 6 again, insert, chapter 7, chapter 8, which is the first doorway of no return. So that is the first act of my novel.